Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2025 release Glue Trap, and just so you know, this is a very low budget independent horror film. I like to support those types of films, and with films like this, I think it's always important to just kind of jump in and see what you got. And sometimes you're not going to love it, like I didn't love this film. Sometimes you are going to love it, like a film that felt kind of similar to this in premise called Hanky Panky that I reviewed kind of recently that I would definitely recommend checking out. Get that one, but also, just give independent horror films a try, or just independent film in general. So anyway, this one was written and directed by Justin Geldzahler. This was the individual's first feature film. Now, that said, I don't think this was a great film. Like I said, I didn't really enjoy this film all that much. But for being a first feature film, there are some good things to build on from there. And I always hope that filmmakers, especially when they're just getting started out, continue to develop, continue to make film and find their style and find their niche in the industry and, do well. So I really hope that for Geldzahler. This film I rented through Fandango at home for $6.35 with tax. So if it's a film that you end up not liking that much, $6.35, that's not bad. It's like way less than going to see a film in the theater. So, and you're supporting low budget independent. So quick synopsis of this one. It's about a couple who, from the get-go, it's very obvious that they're having some issues between them. You're not 100% sure in the beginning what those issues are, but their interactions are kind of a little bit passive aggressive. It seems like they're a little bit kind of disconnected. They're not on the same page with how they're talking to each other. And they meet up with some friends, and these friends kind of throw out, hey, we know someone who has a cabin in the woods that you can go and stay in. And it's snowy at this point, so it looks kind of nice. And so they're like, maybe you guys need this getaway because obviously there's something going on there. There's some tension, whatever. So they take them up on that. They go, and I'm not going to reveal too much if people want to watch this, but it is a comedy horror film, or sorry, horror comedy. I like saying it that way because although with this one, it's actually probably more comedy horror because there isn't a ton of horror for this film, but there is some. So if you're looking for that horror, it is there, but no going into it. It's not heavy on the horror at all, and the horror is pretty much just at the end of the film. So yeah, but let me get a little bit more into it. It immediately looks and feels like a very low budget film. So for me personally, when I become very aware of that going into a film, my expectations are adjusted because obviously they're not working with a huge budget. They can't do a great job with practical effects. They can't afford like big name actors and actresses. They can't afford, to shoot at multiple shooting locations a lot of the time. So very, very limited for what they can do. So expectations kind of lower. So I did take that into account. The acting is kind of rigid at times, but I did think that the two main characters, that couple I was talking about, had good chemistry together. There are moments where they're kind of not as on their game as other moments, but there are some other moments where I think they give some really nice, convincing performances. And like I said, their chemistry is there. So they did a really good job kind of matching these two up in the scenes. And I like that. And I do think that the chemistry that they have and a bit of what's built does have some payoff by the end of the film. Unfortunately, it's not enough of a payoff for the duration of the film that you end up sitting through. And unfortunately, it does feel like you are sitting through this. I really wish it wasn't that way. But good chemistry for the main characters. There is some pretty good relationship awkwardness. I thought they captured that pretty well. I was talking about in the beginning with the synopsis that there was this kind of like disconnect that you could tell between them. And part of that was done through the acting performance, through that chemistry that those two have, but also through the actual dialogue writing. So the dialogue writing was actually pretty decent. I think that's a really good building block to start from for Geldzahler. So at least from a writing standpoint here. The score is pretty restrained, which usually I'm a big fan of, but I will say in this instance, the score is too restrained. I think we could have used more music in the film to kind of help with some mood situations. I also think that the composition could have been a lot better. The composition is not great. Now, That said, like I said, it's a very low budget independent film, potentially a no budget independent film. So expectations, but the composition is not great. I have seen some extremely low budget films that have good scores, like legitimately really good scores. So I was pretty let down by the score for this film and how it was used, unfortunately. Direction and cinematography is very basic. This film does say first time filmmaker to me. It kind of speaks like film school project type, maybe a little bit higher than like film school project, but because it does have a little bit of polish to it. But yeah, it kind of it says that to me, unfortunately. It's just very basic. Like there aren't any interesting camera angles. It's just all very like specific, like basic straight on shots. You know, here's these people in the scene, here's these people in the scene. It's all just done with the tripod, which good job not having shaky handheld camera work. I appreciate that big time. But yeah, it's just it's boring direction. It's boring cinematography, unfortunately. The pacing is not good in this film, unfortunately. This is definitely one of those films where it would have been a lot better as a short film because the material's just not there. There's a lot of talking that goes on between the two main characters and another character who ends up being introduced into the film, but it's not that engaging, and the humor portion of it is only okay-ish at times, and that's what you would need to fill that space. Like, if you're really trying to stretch this to a feature-length level, and this, I think it's like 1 hour and 28 minutes with credits at the end, you need to fill it with dialogue that is engaging or fun or funny, and it's just not quite there, in my opinion. There are a few moments where the dialogue is kind of interesting, kind of funny, but for the most part, it's kind of droll. It feels like they end up repeating a lot of their same conversations over and over again, and everything just feels so drawn out. So it just gets so boring, and you legitimately, like me, just kind of end up losing interest in the film. And it's like, is there a point? Are we going somewhere? Are we going to get there? So it just languishes in itself in a bad way. Like I said, humor is okay-ish at times. I did actually laugh. I think once I actually laughed at something that I thought was legitimately kind of funny. You do find yourself wondering, where's the horror, unfortunately. When you are billing yourselves as a horror comedy, you should probably introduce the horror a lot earlier in the film. Again, this goes back to, I think it should have been a short film, and then the amount of horror in it would have been fine. It's literally the amount of horror you need for a horror comedy for a short film, not for a feature-length film, in my opinion. So I think a lot of people would start watching this film if they don't know anything about it and be like, where is the horror? This just seems like a dramedy, basically, is what it ends up feeling like, and that's not great. Eventually you do get the horror, but it's at the very end of the film, and it's probably only for 20 minutes, maybe. So that's not a great ratio. They definitely spell things out for the audience way too much. That's another thing. They say instead of doing, and that's kind of... I always take issue with that because I feel like it's insulting to your audience. It kind of reads as the filmmaker being like, I think these people are going to watch this film are just too stupid to pick up on what I'm trying to get at here. And that's not the case. People will easily pick up on it, especially what they were trying to get across in this film. It's very basic. You could tell way before they're like explicitly telling you what's going on, and it's just insulting, and it's also a waste of time. So they really did not need that at all. I did like their final scene, though. I thought that the very final scene of this film actually had good impact to it, and it kind of spoke to me as one of those scenes that they came up with the idea of this before the script was written. That like, okay, this is the premise that I want, and this is how I want it to end, because it could be a really good, impactful ending. And it is, to a degree. It is a very good ending, but the problem is filling the rest of that runtime was just a chore to watch. So it's an okay short film at best, unfortunately. I was not big on this one. I really wanted to like it. I liked the idea of the premise going into it, and there were a few good things like I already talked about, but Unfortunately, out of 5 stars, half stars possible, I'm going to give it a 1.5 star rating. I don't think this is great, but I would say Geldzahler, I'm rooting for you. You have some good foundations here. Go forward. Write some more scripts. Get some other people involved with the editing, with the ideas, editing the script. I mean, and with the ideas and everything. And good luck to you. You know. But would love to hear other people's opinions, especially if you really enjoyed this film. Go ahead and put it in the comments. We can talk spoilers in the comments. That's totally fine. Do me a quick favor. Hit subscribe to my channel if you'd like to support me at all. You can also monetarily support me a little bit if you want to. I have memberships for the channel where you get some special perks each month, or just kind of ongoing, depending on how long you would be a member. But those are pretty small fee for that one. But thumbs up really helps with that algorithm. Hitting the note. Yep, there you go. There you go. Hitting the notification bell button. You'll know when I'm putting up new videos, all that jazz. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this. And until next time, keep it brutal.